I was talking with a friend the other day, and he asked me a simple but powerful question. I know how much I've saved, but how do I compare to everyone else my age? And that got me thinking. We live on a planet that isn't equal. Just picture this. The bottom 50% of the global population controls only 2% of all wealth, while the top 10% owns around 76%. Meanwhile, the world's wealthiest billionaires hold fortunes that rival entire nations. But here's the surprising twist. To be considered part of the top 1% globally, you don't need billions. In the US, the entry point is roughly $5.8 million in net worth. So, where do you stand? Are you ahead of your peers, or do you have some catching up to do? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how you compare to others in your age group, and more importantly, what you can do to improve your financial future before it's too late. My name is Ivan, and I help people understand how to build wealth without needing a trust fund or a crystal ball to predict the stock market. If you are tired of living paycheck to paycheck and ready to actually take control of your financial future, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. If this information helps you out before we dive into the numbers, there's something really important to understand. The difference between average and median net worth. If you only look at the average, you'll get a distorted picture because it's inflated by a small group of ultra-wealthy households. Let's make this simple. Imagine 5 people with different savings amounts. One has $10,000, another has $100,000, a third has $250,000, a fourth has $500,000, and the last one has $5 million. If you add all of that up and divide it by 5, the average comes out to about $1.17 million. On paper, that looks impressive. But here's the problem. 4 out of those 5 people don't have anywhere close to $1 million. That single $5 million account is skewing the whole picture. This is why the median is so useful. Instead of adding everything together, the median simply looks for the middle number. In this case, it's $250,000. That means half of the people have less than that amount and half have more. And the same thing happens when we look at the US as a whole. The average household net worth today is about $1.06 million. But the median household net worth is closer to $192,700. The difference is enormous. So as we move through the net worth numbers by age group, remember this. The average shows us the big picture of the nation's wealth, but the median tells us what's actually typical for everyday Americans. If you're in your 20s and your net worth is 0, that's honestly not as bad as it sounds. In fact, most people in this age group actually have a negative net worth, mainly because of student loans. Think about it. You've just graduated, maybe working an entry-level job, and the pay is usually just enough to cover the basics. Between rent, bills, and loan payments, there's not much left over. For many, part-time jobs or minimum wage work barely cover living costs, let alone debt. That's why starting off at 0 can actually put you ahead of many of your peers. According to the latest Federal Reserve data, households under age 35 have a median net worth of about $39,000, while the average is around $183,500. The median tells us most young adults don't have 6 figures in assets yet. A few outliers who inherit wealth or strike it big in business raise the average, but the typical 20-something is closer to that $39,000 figure. This stage is less about being rich and more about forming good habits. You might not feel the pain of spending $2,000 on a weekend trip today, but your future self will wish you had saved it. If you can start putting away even 5 to 10% of your income into savings or investments, you'll be far ahead of the curve within just a decade. Your 20s aren't about perfection, they're about setting the right habits, budgeting wisely, avoiding unnecessary debt, and starting to invest early. Those choices compound over time and can make the difference between financial stress and financial security later in life. By the time you reach your 30s, the financial picture starts to shift. This is a decade when careers begin to stabilize, incomes grow, and for many, the responsibilities of home ownership and family come into play. If you want to be in a solid position, you should aim to have an emergency fund that covers at least 6 months of living expenses. With the average U.S. household income around $74,580 in 2022, according to the Census Bureau, that means having roughly $35,000 to $40,000 set aside for unexpected events. Life can throw curveballs, from medical bills to sudden job loss. And having this cushion can keep you from falling into debt. When it comes to net worth, the Federal Reserve reports that Americans between ages 35 and 44 have a median net worth of about $135,300, while the average is closer to $548,000. The gap between these two numbers is huge, and that's because the average is pulled up by a smaller group of high earners with significant investments or business ownership. For the typical household, net worth in this stage is still weighed down by student loans, mortgages, and the cost of raising children. Even if you own a car and a home, liabilities like loans often overshadow your assets. That's why reaching the median is already a strong milestone. It means you're building equity and laying the foundation for future growth. The key in your 30s is to balance growth with discipline. Paying down debt steadily while investing a consistent portion of your income can make the difference between falling behind or positioning yourself for long-term financial security. By the time you reach your 40s, your financial progress should begin to pick up speed. Careers are usually well established, incomes are higher than in your 20s and 30s, and many people are focused on supporting growing families. For a lot of households, home ownership becomes a major factor at this stage. As you pay down your mortgage, you're building equity in an appreciating asset instead of paying rent. Retirement accounts should ideally be set up by now, with regular contributions adding up over time. Yet surprisingly, many people still haven't given much thought to retirement. So, what should your numbers look like? According to the latest Federal Reserve data, Americans between 45 and 54 have a median net worth of around $246,700, while the average is close to $971,300. That's nearly $1 million on paper for the average. But again, most households are closer to that median figure. A common rule of thumb at this stage is to have around 3 times your annual income saved. With the median US household income around $74,580, that means aiming for roughly $225,000 in savings and assets by your mid-40s. For some, that may feel ambitious, especially with family expenses, but it's a helpful benchmark to make sure you're on track for retirement. Your 40s are a critical time to double down on smart financial habits. Every dollar invested now has less time to grow compared to your 20s and 30s, but your higher income gives you more power to save aggressively and stay ahead. By the time you reach your 50s, your net worth should have grown into a sizable figure. This growth isn't just from higher earnings, but also from years of compounding investments, paying down mortgages, and building equity. At this stage, many families also begin to see children move out, which can free up room in the household budget. That said, financial discipline is still crucial. Some people fall into the trap of overspending in their 50s, purchasing luxury items or taking on new debt because they feel they've earned it after decades of hard work. While rewarding yourself isn't wrong, it's just as important to keep building savings for retirement, especially if you want to live comfortably without depending on your children or government programs. According to the latest Federal Reserve data, Americans between 55 and 64 have a median net worth of about $364,270, while the average is around $1.56 million. So the spread between these two figures shows how unequal wealth distribution is at this age. Some people are fully prepared for retirement, while others are still playing catch up. A good rule of thumb in your 50s is to have around 5 times your annual income saved, with median household income around $74,580. That translates to about $375,000 in assets and retirement savings, a target that lines up closely with the median reported by the Fed. Your 50s are a make or break decade. If you're behind, this is the time to save aggressively, eliminate debt, and maximize retirement contributions. The earlier you take action, the more flexibility you'll have when retirement finally arrives. When you enter your 60s, retirement becomes less of a distant idea and more of an immediate reality. Some people in this age group continue working to maximize earnings and Social Security benefits, while others begin drawing down savings and shifting their focus from wealth building to wealth preservation. At this stage, many households may have paid off their mortgages or are close to doing so, which frees up cash flow. Retirement accounts like 401ks and IRAs should ideally be at their peak after decades of contributions and compounding. Still, plenty of people in this group feel unprepared, either because they didn't save enough or because much of their wealth is tied up in illiquid assets like real estate. According to the Federal Reserve, households between 65 and 74 have a median net worth of about $410,000, while the average is close to $1.78 million needs. This gap highlights the sharp contrast between those who invested consistently over the years and those who struggled to set money aside. A common benchmark suggests having around 7 to 8 times your annual income saved by the time you're in your early 60s. for a household earning the median income of about $74,580. This would mean targeting $525,000 to $600,000 in retirement savings. While that may sound intimidating, the key is that retirement expenses are often lower. Many major costs, like mortgages, commuting, or supporting children, are reduced or disappear entirely. Your 60s are about making smart decisions with what you've already built. This means evaluating when to claim Social Security, ensuring your portfolio is balanced for both growth and stability, and having a clear plan for withdrawals so your money lasts throughout retirement. By the time you're in your 70s, the focus usually shifts away from building wealth and toward making it last. Many people in this age group are fully retired and living off their retirement accounts, Social Security, and any other income streams they have built. Others may still be working part-time, either out of choice or necessity. At this stage, medical costs and long-term care can become significant expenses, while day-to-day spending may decrease compared to earlier years. For those who manage to save and invest consistently, the priority is often preserving wealth and ensuring it can support a comfortable lifestyle for the decades ahead. According to the latest Federal Reserve data, households aged 75 and older have a median net worth of about $335,600, while the average remains high at around $1.62 million. The average is still pulled upward by wealthier retirees, but the median shows what's more typical for most households. In your 70s, the strategy isn't about chasing big returns anymore. It's about maintaining stability, covering essential costs, and ensuring your savings last. For many, this also means planning for estate transfers, creating income strategies, and making sure retirement funds can cover both everyday living and potential health-related expenses. The goal here isn't to compare yourself to the averages, but to ensure that the wealth you've accumulated supports the lifestyle you want for the rest of your life. At the end of the day, the question isn't just how much do you have compared to others, it's are you making choices today that set you up for the future you want? Because no matter your starting point, it's never too late to take control and move closer to financial independence.